Good everyone. I hope you guys have an amazing day. So today what I'm gonna do, I will cover Omnistudio in just one episode, right? Um, I do understand that I often make videos around the certification. This one is not specifically targeted towards Omnistudio consultant or developer certification, though you can use this as a reference for your preparation. So because I'll be covering most of the stuff anyways. Um, so the reason why I wanted to do this video, because recently I got certified as an Omnistudio consultant and developer, and I'll be honest with you, I felt that certification is one of the most easiest coming from a Salesforce side, right? So I wanted to cover each and every component, and I will walk you through the demo I built, so that if you're someone new to Omnistudio, you can pretty much watch this video, and then you will have a fairly decent understanding what Omnistudio is about, how to build the stuff, and get it started, right? And I'll try to cover this perhaps in an hour or hour and a half, right? We'll see how it goes. Okay, so um, this is the agenda for today. So introduction, I will talk about what Omnistudio is about, the layers of component, right, around Omnistudio, which Omnistudio offers. Excuse me. Omnistudio flashcards, Dataraptors, Omniscript, integration procedures, and demo, right? So that's pretty much is the agenda for this episode, right? I think that's pretty good one in my opinion. Um, so the way I wanted to do, right? I wanted to talk about all this stuff using slide first, right? Then we jump into the org, and I'll show you how to register for an org and all kind of stuff, right? so so that's the agenda. I hope that's pretty clear. Okay, the first thing first, right? What is an Omnistudio, right? Why do we even talk about Omnistudio at first place? So lately, Salesforce has been buying a lot of different clouds, and spending a lot of the resource in building up the industry cloud-based application, right? Like Health Cloud, Finance Cloud, and all of the kinds of stuff, right? So Omnistudio, the initial name was Velocity, right? Then the Salesforce bought it, and now it's all Salesforce stuff, right? It's a part of one of the Salesforce suite of components. So if in nutshell, right, if you ask me what an Omnistudio is about, it's like a set of tools, right, or a component, or which helps you build an application for industry cloud, right? So that's in nutshell the Omnistudio is about. And the advantage of Omnistudio is that you don't have to be a programmer, right? It's pretty low code, right? It's pretty much like using a flow, or if you're someone who is from a MuleSoft background, right? It's pretty much similar, right? Drag and drop. You can build the stuff. You can call APIs. You can do a lot of behind the scenes stuff. It's pretty much similar to that concept, right? And also, the one of the good thing is that everything is drag and drop, right? And also, it supports the microservice oriented approach. That's one of the coolest things. So, and also, you can build a fancy looking UI depending upon your, web design skill. So, in saying so, right, you don't need to know, in-depth HTML or CSS, though, it will help if you're comfortable with it, but that's not really a requirement for you, as a part of working with Omnistudio. And also, it supports a lot of automation out of box, right? So um, now Omnistudio is not free. Okay, so that's something I just wanted to mention, right? It's a part of the Salesforce product. So I'm not going to talk about the licensing at this stage, because this is a pretty introduction video, and my main intention is to get you guys started on the Omnistudio side. But in saying so, I will also talk about the best practices around using Omnistudio, right? Because obviously, I don't want you guys to get started in the wrong way, because at the end of the day, right, it doesn't matter what tool you're using. So you have to use the tool in an efficient way, so that you can make the best out of it, right? Okay, so what I'm going to do, before I talk about different aspects of Omnistudio, I wanted to talk about layers, which is pretty important for you guys to know. So these are the layers of component. I took this from Trailhead, so so that you guys don't blame me from plagiarizing it. So this is a Trailhead stuff, and a couple of stuff I took from Trailhead. So as you can see, there are three layers of components which we can talk about. Right, first is the digital experience, and the service management, and the developer experience. Okay, so let me talk about the first one, the digital experience. As you can see on the screen, talk about the flex card and the Omniscript. Okay, now flex card and Omniscript is pretty much used for giving a user interface. Okay, so let me talk about the flex card first. Okay, in a nutshell, then we look in detail, then you will understand what I'm trying to say. So think about I'm pretty sure you guys might have been to McDonald's, right? So you go to McDonald's, okay? When you enter a McDonald's store, like I'm talking specific from a New Zealand perspective, but I'm pretty sure McDonald's is the same anywhere in India or United States or Sweden or wherever it is, right? So you go to McDonald's, the first thing you see, you look at the board, right? The board full of menus, okay? And in the menus, you'll see, hey, the Big Mac or Angus Burger or Texas Ranger or whatever, right? And so the menu gives you an overview information about the things which you can order, right? And it's like a very nice summarized way with pictures and the price and everything, right? So that as a customer, you get to know in a comprehensive view or summarized view of what exactly that's in menu today, right? Or what exactly McDonald's can offer, right? So that's something a flex card is about. If you wanted to build a 360-degree view of a customer information or a summarized view, you can do that using flex card. The thing with the flex card is that it's not a user. You can't input stuff. You can't expect an output. It's just the information. Like it's like a poster, right? You can touch it, but you can't do anything with it, right? Now, Omniscript is something. It's like a guided interface, right? So for instance, you booked a dentist appointment, right? And before you go into dentist place, dentist will send you, these days, at least my dentist, as far as I can tell, send out a form, an online form, electronic form where you have to fill, hey, this is uh, on top of the form, you will have some pre-filled information like my name, my date of birth, and my address, right? Which is obviously confidential, from a dentist perspective. So, and then few fields you need to fill. Hey, are you unwell? Have you been in close contact with a COVID person for the past 7 days? Anyone has been isolating in your home? And are you feeling sick or feverish? And if you have yes or no kind of stuff, right? That's like a guided interface where you actually have to give an input, right? Where you can click on yes or no, right? So that's something where Omniscript comes in picture. It's like to give you the guided experience, or the coming back to the same McDonald's experience, right? If you think from if you think from a McDonald's perspective, so Omniscript is like you go to the counter and the person sitting in the counter say, hey, or you know, um, or which burger you would like to order, or would you like to order chicken nuggets or whatever, right? Or which drink you like to have. So it's like an interaction. Or if that's not a good enough example, you just go to the terminal, right, where you enter the information and you punch in your card number and whatever, right? So that's kind of a guided interface, you can say, in terms of Omniscript. Or the insurance agency, that's another example for the Omniscript where, they will send you an insurance form to fill where you have to acknowledge and, take it, whatever. So that's in simple terms when we talk about the digital experience. And then we have service management. It's like a data layer, right? So integration procedure, then we have Dataraptors. So obviously, right, having a UI, it's not good enough, right? You have to get the data from somewhere, all right? So that's where this service management, the service management layers comes in the picture. So it's like integration procedure is used when you wanted to retrieve data from Salesforce as well as from external source, right? So I will show you in the demo how I'm retrieving a data from a Salesforce object as well as from an API, and then we combine that JSON and just passing that to FlexCard. So if it sounds pretty vague to you guys at this stage, don't worry. We'll talk about it. So integration procedure in a nutshell, it's like a data layer where you're getting a data from Salesforce as well as from a external source. Now, Dataraptors, it's just specific to the Salesforce, where you're trying to get the data only from a Salesforce. And not only getting the data from Salesforce, you can write the data back to the Salesforce as well. So that's the one thing you can do. Okay, the one thing you have to remember, you cannot delete a data using Dataraptors. Okay, so you can do update. Um, so you can do, insert, right? You can do upsert. You can fetch the data, but if you wanted to delete the data, say for instance, if you wanted to delete a record in an account object, you cannot do that using Dataraptors. You have to use integration procedure for it. We'll talk about it when we reach that stage. Now, this is a developer experience. That's a DevOps tool. So the Salesforce, so you can download this IDX Workbench, right? If you wanted to transfer your Omnistudio component from one org to another org, you can pretty much do that. So I'm not going to cover that in this episode. Perhaps in the future I'll talk about it because I personally believe it's a very important topic. You can also integrate, to your Git command to push the data from one org to another if you're really not after the user interface. So this is in a nutshell about the layers of component. Or if it still sound confusing, if you're someone who've been doing a lot of .NET code development or Java development, you might have heard about the concept called MVC, right? The model view controller. So if you look from a model view controller, right, think about the digital experience as your view, okay, where it's like a user interface where a user will be interfacing, right? And you have then we have a model, right? Model is often represents the data, right? Which is obviously could be your Salesforce data, could be your external data, right? And the controller is your service management layer, like your Dataraptors or integration procedure, which responsibility is to fetch the data from the database and display to the view. Okay, so that's in a nutshell. It's in a simple terms, right? I hope that's clear. So these are the things which we will be dealing with Omnistudio, right? When we're dealing with Omnistudio. Okay, so that's pretty cool, right? Now let's look at the each component one by one, right, to get an idea, and then I'll talk about the best practices and kind of stuff, right? All right. The first thing is the flex card, right? If you remember, I talked about the flex card. If you remember the McDonald's example, right? Flex card is if you wanted to get it, a summarized view of a customer information, or a summarized view of a menu, or in a McDonald's, as you can see, you go to that menu board, you can't pretty much do anything, right? It's just for your information that these are the things which we sell, and if it's up to you, whichever you wanted to order. Okay, so there's not much user input going on when you talk about the flex car, right? It's just a information for your, maybe customer wants a summarized information, maybe customer wants a little bit more detailed information, which they normally can't get it on a normal account object or any other object, right? So now the thing with the flex car, right? You can pretty much build it by dragging and dropping a component. We're going to look at it, what that means. So you can view that pretty much on any device or channel. That means you can view that on a tablet, you can view that on a mobile phone or a cell phone, right? Or you can view that on your desktop computer as well, okay? Now, you can get the data from multiple sources, as I mentioned, right? Using a data. If you remember, if I go back, this is an integration procedure, right? So in integration procedure, I mentioned that you can retrieve a data from a Salesforce as well as from an API, right? And that integration procedure you can use in the Flex card as the data source. Obviously, because sorry for the flickering if you've seen that. So obviously, it's very important to understand, right? Just building merely a user interface is just not good enough. You need to have a data point, right, where you're actually getting a data from. So that's where you can use Dataraptor, or you can use SQL query. You can use a lot of things, right? You can even use Apex code, but we're not gonna talk about that. But I'll show you what I meant by that, about the data source, how the data source comes in picture when we actually create a flex card, right? Right. So you can use integration procedure here, and you can actually drag and drop the stuff, right? That's how you build it, because it's a low code. It's what you see is what you get. So as you can see the diagram here, right? So this is a flex card, which is your UI, right? And you're getting a data from a different source. You can get the data from an API, which is obviously a preferred choice using an integration procedure. You can use the streaming API. You can do social. I'm pretty sure you guys know what is social, right? Like a full text. You can get a. You can also pass the static. Sorry, I can't say because I I'm struggling, still struggling with a cold. So, and my asthma got very worse lately. So my apologies if my voice sounds a bit clunky. But I wanted to get this out. I wanted to, give you guys the knowledge. What I've learned is fantastic. So bear with me, please. Okay. So this is a the static data um, for display and testing. So obviously you wanted to test the flex card to see how the information looks like on the screen, right? So you can pass the static data. I'll show you how the static data works, right? And also the Apex code. Okay, so I hope that's clear in a nutshell what FlexCard is about, right? So like I said, it provides a tool for building customer-centric, industry-specific UI component and application on the Salesforce platform, right? So and I'll show you, right, how what I meant by that. Okay, now Omniscript, right? So if you remember the same UI layer, we talked about the Omniscript, where I give an example, right, about my dentist, right? If I wanted to visit the dentist often, send me an electronic form, and on the electronic form, I can see my name, my date of birth, and my address, and rest of the fields. These three fields are static. I can't modify it because it's a read only, and the rest of the fields like do you have a COVID or have you been in contact with someone who've been infected, yada yada yada, right? So it's like a user input field. So that's where Omniscript comes in the picture. And again, on the Omniscript, you still need a data. So the data source, right? Obviously, you have to get data from somewhere, right? So also you can call Omniscript from a flex card, right? So say for instance you are an account screen, a customer is happy with the account information, but at the same time they also want to update few stuff on an account. So you can use a Omniscript to update it. I'll show you that demo. It's pretty interesting, right? So another example, like I said in the beginning, right? Insurance agent wants to update a policy. Um, so you send out a policy form, right? So there are a few conditions they have to agree. Like, do you agree to this condition? Terms, put a checkbox, no, whatever, right? So yeah, and the troubleshooting step, right? So if you're working on a say solar panel company, right, and you wanted to send out a self-servicing troubleshooting, right, for a specific issue, you can send out, right, hey, is your solar panel faulty? Have you tweaked this wire? You put yes or no. Have you did this? Have you did that? Okay, based on that, you forward them to a resource, right, a document or a user manual or whatever, right? So you can do that using Omniscript. It's pretty powerful. Okay. All right. Now, the next thing I want to talk about the Dataraptors. So Dataraptors, if you remember, I mentioned it's a part of the data layer. Okay, so the service layer, if you remember. So it's like to get the data from a Salesforce or update or insert the data back to the Salesforce. Now there are four types of Dataraptors, which we'll be talking about just in a second. And also pay close attention to this Venn diagram. So as you can see, we have the data extract, we have a data load, and the data transform, and all of these, three things. So I didn't mention the data turbo extract because data turbo extract and data extract is pretty much the same, but the difference I'll tell you in a second. So all of these things shares a common functionality, right? So they use the formula functions. So formula function is pretty much what you've used in your Salesforce, right? It's a little bit of tweak here and there, but it's pretty much the same. And individual functionality, all these four components offers. Okay, so let's start with the Dataraptor Turbo Extract. Now, what is a Dataraptor Turbo Extract? So let's say I have a requirement. I wanted to get the data from a single Salesforce object, say an account object. You can use the data turbo extract. Or if I wanted to say get a data from a case object, you can use turbo extract, and it's pretty fast. Okay. But if I want to get the data from a multiple Salesforce object, say parent child or joins, let's say I wanted to get a data. Let's say I wanted to get an account and as well as all the cases associated with that account. I cannot use the data, the turbo extract, because turbo extract only support fetching a data from a single object. So if you wanted to fetch the data from a multiple Salesforce object, you have to use the Dataraptor extract. So that's where the Dataraptor extract comes in the picture. Remember, Dataraptors is only used for fetching a data from a Salesforce object. If you are talking about external source like an API or a web service, Dataraptors is not the one to go for. Okay, so for that you use integration procedure. I hope that's clear. So Dataraptors, anything to do with the Salesforce object, Salesforce means the get or update. You will use Dataraptors. The one thing which Dataraptors will not support, that's the delete operation. You cannot delete a record using Dataraptors. Okay, that's pretty cool. All right, Dataraptor load. It's the load means it's like you're pushing the data back to the Salesforce, right? You can use the CSV file. You can migrate the data from CSV to the Salesforce. You can create it, you can update it, right? So you can do all this stuff using data load. So anything to do with the post operation, right? So use the Dataraptor load. Excuse me. The data transform, right? It's just Dataraptor transform. It's just when you wanted to transform, one form of JSON to another form, right? For instance, you are getting a JSON from multiple sources, right? But you wanted to transform them into a single source so that you can use that in a flashcard. So you use the Dataraptor transform. Also, you have to see that if you wanted to print a fillable PDF or you want to populate a DocuSign template, you can use that using Dataraptor transform. Okay, so if you look at this Venn diagram again, you can see that Dataraptor extract does pretty much extract the data from a Salesforce, right? So that's why I included just the Dataraptor extract. So Turbo is faster, right? Because it's obviously extracting the data from a single source, a single object. The data, and they all share one common functionality. I mean, in fact, few common functionalities. So you can trim, map, restructure to transform data to JSON, XML. Now, remember one thing: you can use XML if you want. You can use JSON, and now you must be wondering where, right? So obviously, you're getting an input from all of this. You can use that JSON or XML, or you can use, yeah, that's pretty much it. I think that's good enough for now. All right, so this is one thing I want to talk about. Now comes to the main guy, right? That's the integration procedure. So integration procedure, it's a pretty powerful tool. And trust me, Salesforce is investing lots of money building new components to part of integration procedure. Now, integration procedure plays a very important role when you wanted to write a clean code. Now, you must be wondering what the heck I'm talking about, the clean code. Where does the code comes in picture? So remember, right, everything, yes, it is a low code what we're talking about, but I do expect that if someone to have some basic understanding about how the programming works, because otherwise you will not have any idea what's a try block catch means. What's a try? Why do you have to use a try catch? Well, what's the concept of what's the meaning of separation of concept concern, right? So all of these things you have to understand a bit, right? I mean, yes, you could be a functional consultant, but there is a little bit of expectation that you should first of all upskill yourself on JSON. If you're not comfortable, I would highly encourage you to go upskill, right? And you should understand what a server-side processing is all about, the performance, and what is, what's the meaning of, using a component, right? So that kind of stuff. Okay, sorry I digress, but I just wanted to mention it's pretty important, guys. So integration procedure, it's like I said, if you wanted to read and write the data, right? Or if you wanted to read, let me start with a simple thing. If you wanted to read the data from Salesforce as well as from an external source, you can do that using integration procedure. If you wanted to delete a record in a Salesforce object, you can do by using integration procedure. Okay. Now, integration procedure is declarative. You can drag and drop this stuff. I'll show you. It's pretty fantastic stuff, guys. Server-side processing, right? Obviously, server-side processing. You can do multiple stuff in a single call, right? What I meant by that, and if you call, say, Dataraptor separate, if you call integration separate, so that will be considered as a separate call. So if you wanted to use the Dataraptors, if you wanted to use then API call, everything can be put into integration procedure, and it will return you the result using a single call. Okay, so as you can see that this is the integration procedure, and you have the Salesforce data coming through the Dataraptor, and you can call the data using an HTTP action, and you can also use Apex code, right? Apex code is very powerful, but I'm not going to talk about it today. So in my demo, what I'm going to do, I will talk about these two things, right? Salesforce and API, and how do you get it. So in this case, right, you'll get a separate JSON, and in this case, right, you get a separate JSON. But with the power of this guy, Dataraptor transform, we convert those two JSON into single JSON, and then we're going to use in the flashcard. That's the demo I'm going to show you. I've already built it, but I'll walk you through it, what it is about. Okay, so this is how, in a nutshell, how the things works when you're using an Omniscript. The reason why I mention Omniscript, right, because Omniscript you're going to use a lot, okay? Now, most of the people make mistakes I've seen because I've spoken to a few people who've been a Omnistudio developer and based on an Omnistudio architect. So they kind of gave me feedback, right, the mistakes, what people do, right? When you use Omniscript, okay? People tend to use separate components on it instead of using an integration procedure, because integration procedure can pretty much do, most of the things. But in saying so, right, I would say that it depends on your business scenario. Okay, so if your business scenario needs you to use Apex class, you gotta use Apex class, guys. If you wanted to use something else, you gotta use that, right? There's no, one rule of thumb to, or one size fit for all. It doesn't work that way, right? It's all depends on the business requirement and things which you're trying to build. Okay, but as a best practice, if you have a requirement where you wanted to get a JSON data from a multiple source, you better use integration procedure. Okay. All right. So that's the presentation. Now let's jump into demo. Okay. So what I'm going to do, before I do that, I'll show you one thing. I'm going to use this API. This is a free API, right? So what does this API do? It will return you the nationality based on your name, right? So if I put JET, right? This is a very common name in Scandinavia. So we'll say the JET name, I don't know how to pronounce it because I had a friend, the name, and I always get it wrong. But okay, so this is this name you've commonly found in Denmark. Okay, now let's look at the other name. Let's look at my partner's name. So let's say Christina without an H. So obviously you can find in Moldova, Romania. My partner, she was born in Romania, although she's sort of German origin. But so yeah, this you can see that, right? And let's say if I put a name, so I would say Shira, right? It's from Israel. It's a pretty common Jewish name, right? And I will say Esther, right? Right, you have all this kind of stuff. All right, so this is exactly what I'm going to use, right, as an API. I mean, it's just a fun stuff, just to show you, how easy to use an API. I mean, this requires no credentials, but if you have to use credentials, I'll show you the things that you can do. All right, now the first thing first, you need to have an org, right? Obviously, you must be asking, okay, that's all good. How do I request a free org? Right, so I'll put the link in the description below, so you can go to this link and you can register for an Omnistudio org, right? Most of the time, you might get access to the customer sandbox to play around with it, so that just depends upon your compliance, right? Because I can't use a customer data sandbox to demonstrate it, because it's a compliance issue and you might have signed the ND agreement, so you shouldn't be using customer data for any kind of demonstration unless you're demonstrating to your customer. That's the first thing of consulting. I just wanted to let you guys. It's a very bad practice, right? You're using customer data to create a demo. So this is the personal org. You register, so you can register. So I've registered for an org, and I'm going to demonstrate using my own org. Okay, but But if you have if you are getting an access to a customer sandbox to play around and your customer is okay with it, then that's another way you can learn it, right? So whichever that works for you. All right, so go here and register it. Like I said, I'll put a link in the description below. So, all right, so once you do that, you will, all right, so let me open it in the new window. Let's see how it looks like. So you will get something like this. Right. It's a bit slow, guys. So, all right, I will. So you'll get something like this, right? Or if you don't, you can do this tic-tac-toe icon, and you'll get these two things: Omnistudio and Omnistudio Console, right? Uh, so if you click on Omnistudio Console, right, it will take you to something like this, right? Or if you because it's a console, right? And this is exactly what I will be building it. And if you go to say Omnistudio, right? Um, this is something what you'll be getting it, right? Right. Now, I talked about a few components, and you must be wondering, where is the flex card and what the heck we're gonna do, right? So this is the thing I built, right? If you see this one, this account name, Gene Point, primary contact Frank, right? And nationality from integration. So I know this is a pretty, but just to give you a demo, right? So I've used a single JSON to get the data from the Salesforce object as well as from the API. So account name, gene point, it's all coming from a Salesforce, but the nationality from integration, as I've showed you, right? This one is coming from an API, okay? And I've used a single integration procedure to get this stuff, and which I'm going to walk you through what it means. And then I've also used, something called, so Omniscript to update the information. So I'll show you. It's going to take a while. Right, so this is the information, like a pre-populated information, and I can update it. So I'll do this A, and I'll say next, and it will take you back to the same screen. Now, what is that text, right? So that's a bug in the code, which is, I intentionally did it. This is a SIC code, SIC code, so I updated it. As you can see, that it updated it. Now, we can do some kind of modification to the code. I just wanted to because show you guys if you have a requirement, where you can modify the stuff, how do you do that? Because most of the time you might be doing a maintenance stuff, right? You will have the stuff written, you might have to add extra functionality to it. Okay, so the first thing first, let's start with the flex card. Okay, so this is what I will show you what I built, and this is a flex card. And what is a flex card, how to build it, let's get started, right? So I'll go to this one. So if you don't see contact, maybe when you first log in for the first time, you will see everything blank. Okay, let's cut this one. Let's close it, right? So you'll get something like this. So maybe something like this. Okay, maybe your flex card is pointed to the first row, or so. Or you might see something like this. Okay. Maybe when you click on Omnistudio. All right, so the first thing first, I'll show you what FlexCard is, okay? So you go here and choose the FlexCard. So this is the interface, which you can see we have a list of all the FlexCards here. And so what I'll do, I've already created a FlexCard. I'll open that, and I'll open the FlexCard and I'll show you, oh, come on, it's gonna take a while. I don't know, just hopefully it's not going to take ages. All right, so this is the flex card I built, okay? As you can see that, right? And I'll show you each and every step, or how I built it, and what does it mean to build this way, and a component, right? All right, so what I'll do, let's go back here, and I'll go back to the Omnistudio again, right? And let's build a flex card, okay? And you go here, click on new, right? If you don't have a flex card here, you have to go to this drop down arrow and then choose the flex card, right? Sometimes it might point to some of the things, right? So you can't expect to, without looking, to click new. You might be creating something else. So make sure this is pointing to flex card and click on new. All right, so give the name of a flex card. Now, this is important, right? Because it's like you naming a variable in a code. So you can use the camel case, you can use the Pascal case, whatever naming convention you have on board, you just use it. Okay, so I will say, just give a meaningful name. So for now, I will say demo account, right? And the title, it just pre-populate, and you have theme. You can want the lightning. You can use the lightning, which is default, or you can use the new port. It's the Salesforce custom CSS framework tool, right? I mean, we're not gonna get into that, but just for your understanding. Description, always good to put description because there's someone else looking at your flex card will have an understanding, right? What are you trying to do? So this is a, I'm just going to put a rubbish description. This is a demo account, right? Now, is it a child card, right? Now, so we have a concept called a parent and a child, right? So parent means like you're creating a main flex card, right? And the child card means you can put another flex card on top of it, like it sit on top of it, right? It's like a component built on top, and you can drag and drop a component on it. So that component which sits on top of it will become like a child component. Now, if in this case this is not a child component, so I will not take it, right? But remember one thing, right? If you change your mind at the later stage, you cannot come and change it. You might have to tweak the code, but that's a different story. But from a user perspective, you cannot come and fiddle it and say, "Hey, I changed my mind. I wanted to make it as a child component." It does not gonna work. Okay. All right. Click on next. Now this is what I was talking about. The source type, right? You have a SOCL. You can, if you wanted to say, "Hey, I wanted to create a flex card which get the data from one custom object." And so instead of using an integration procedure or Dataraptors, let me write a SOCL query. You're most welcome to do so. You can do social search if you want. You can do that. Apex, you can use an Apex code. If you wanted to use a REST API, you can do that. Dataraptors, you can use a standard REST API call. Integration procedure, streaming API, custom JSON you can pass. You can use SDK as well, right? I mean, there are a lot of options you can do, okay? So I'm not going to cover all of this, but just to give you an idea, right? We can use all of this, source type to, get the data. Okay, I'll save it. All right, so this is how you see the screen, okay? Now, the few things I just want to walk you through, which is pretty interesting. Now, if you remember what I talked when I mentioned that FlexCard is not for any kind of a user interaction, right? It's only for viewing the information. So you cannot do anything where you expect the user to enter some data, right? So there is no user input in this case. So this is a kind of a canvas, a pretty blank canvas. So this is inactive, and this is how it looks like in a desktop. If you wanted to see the tablet, uh, you can change it. You can change it into to the mobile. This is how it looks in mobile, right? This is how it looks in tablet and mobile. You can do that. I'll just you can test your look and feel, right? Obviously, some people are comfortable using them in a mobile phone, so you will get a fairly good idea or good understanding, right, how this stuff will look when it looks on the mobile phone. Okay, now these on the right hand side you have build, properties, style, and setup, right? Build is like your a designer where using which you can drag and drop a component to this canvas. This is what you're going to make use of in most of the time. So most of the components are out of box, right? So you can drag and drop. It's like your flow, right? I mean, you drag and drop stuff from the flow to your canvas. So it's pretty much the same concept. So the first thing I'm going to do, the block, yeah? And the block is like we block the stuff, right? We block the component. right, is you make everything in a block. So if you go back to this main account, so this is a big block, and this is another block, and this is another block. So so I'll close this window, right? And I'll go back. So now you have element name. So always make sure you put the right element name. Okay. So that's where the properties comes into picture. Because you drag the component to a canvas. Now the component has certain properties, right? You can modify like the name. So you can say, like I said, the naming convention is totally depending upon the standard set by an architect or a tech lead. So depending upon your the standards at your place. So block group, block, right, main, or I can say block icon. If you wanted to make it collapsible, right, so you can make it as a collapsible, right, so something like this, right. Some people want the blocks to be collapsible, so you can do that. So and then you have style, right. So you can say, hey, I want the background color to be, say, this one. You can change it, whatever, right? Whatever it is. You can change the background color, right? And then, or if you say, hey, I don't like this background color, I'll put this background color, right? You can change it this, right? You can change it. You can adjust the width, right? You can do that. And then you go to the style, then you go to the setup. Setup is it's just a setup for um, for this flex card. So you can say that, hey, I'll change my mind. Now I know where my um, data source is from. So you go here to setup and change the data source to whichever you wanted to choose. Okay. So that's in simple terms. And then you put the result JSON part. I'll talk about this. I know it's confusing now, but for now, let's do some, stuff. Okay. Now let's put an icon, right? Um, so I'll put the icon here, right? And this icon looks yucky, but it doesn't matter. Just give whatever name you want. Icon test. Select an icon type. You have Salesforce SVG or custom, so it's up to you. If you wanted to use a custom, you provide the image path. If you don't want to use a custom, you can use a Salesforce out of box. It's up to you, whichever you wanted to use. So just use the whatever. I use this one. Okay, money one. Then this is the extra class and the variant default. So if I use inverse, so it will change the color. So this is, it will need your design skill a bit, right? So if you are someone like me, right, who have no eye for design, it's better to get someone else to design this for you, or you can design it, write a prototype. Then someone can help you with, figuring out the step where the component can go, which position, that kind of stuff, right? So yeah. And or you can do something like this. You can ask your, someone who has a very good eye for design to build the front end, and you can build the back end, right? The integration, Raptors, and kind of stuff. So that will work. So depending upon the team dynamics, right? What you have. Okay, so that's good. Now, although I know it's yucky, and I know it's not pretty, so this is my icon. Now I wanted to get some more text. Um, so what I'll do, I will get the text component. So something like this, right? So if you see, I have this icon here, but the color is different, doesn't matter. So you drag a block here, right? And then you name the block, right? Block layer key test. And then you go to, you'll drop the text component, right? So this is where you add all the text stuff, right? Edit me. So you have this. And this is where all the fields will come, right? Your account and kind of stuff, as you can see here, right? Okay, so let's look at this one now. So I hope this is clear so far, right? So we create a flex card, we drag and drop a few component here, like as you can see here, we have this, and then we have the text field. So this is exactly the text field what we have. The only thing is that why it's expanded, because you have more content here. Okay, so if I add more content here, right, I would say test, 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 right? It's expanding, right? So now you have to, so now one thing I just wanted to mention, um, you can hardcode stuff here if you want, but obviously you have to get the data from the database, right? So we have a special syntax for that, and I'll show you how. So if you go to this main account, right, and so you see I have this account name, primary contact, and then you have website. Now you must be wondering why I put this name in brackets, right? Curly braces. Now that's because that's the way, you're telling this component that, hey, I'm getting a data from a JSON, uh, and the JSON has a name field, so get it and display it, right? So as you can see, account name and the primary contact, so it's all coming from a JSON, right? Now that's good. Now, and you must be wondering where the heck the JSON is coming from, right? So if you go to setup here, remember I talked about the data source, right? So data source, in this case, I've selected the integration procedure. So here, right, if you go here, I go to setup and data source. If I select the integration procedure, they expect you to put the name of an integration procedure. Now, what integration procedure is about? So integration procedure is when you wanted to get the data from um, Salesforce as well as from an external source, right? So in this case, what I'm doing, I'm using this integration procedure, right? Get case account info to populate this field, this boy, as well as his nationality from integration, which is coming from an API. And now I have something called the account node, because this is a something that is coming as a root of a JSON node. I know it's heck of confusing. I'll show you what I mean by that. Don't you worry, guys, right? Now, the key is something which you are passing to the integration procedure. Obviously, right, you have to put this flex card somewhere, right? So I'm putting this flex card on an account record page. Now, when you put an account record page, obviously this flex card should render based on the ID you get it here, right? Let me show you here. So this is a gene point account, okay? So you can see gene point. Now let me change the account to this one. So it changed the account to this. So how do this flex card know that this account? So how did this flex card know where to get this account ID? So that's where we have something called record ID. So you have to put R in a lowercase and ID I as uppercase. So this is the syntax Salesforce understand. And you're saying, hey, pass this record ID to this account ID, which is a field key. I'll show you how it is used. All right, so I hope that is clear a bit from a flex car, right? My apologies if it's a bit confusing. So just think about a flex car, right? You're building a UI at this stage, okay? So you drag and drop a component. So we did something here. You drag and drop a component, you drop a text field. Now, obviously, you have to link the text field to the data source, right? And now where the data source is coming from, so the data source is coming from this case info integration procedure. Now, the data source, what you get is a JSON, okay? And I'm saying that I'm passing a root JSON node, right? So the root JSON node, let's see the JSON, right? So you have something like that, your account, right? So you have something like this. So let's say, I'm just giving an example, right? So you have something called name, right? Just a second. So you have something called test, right? And say age, right? Just say, so I would say 25. So to get the name, right? So you have to go something from account and name, right? So obviously you have to start with the root node, right? So the JSON, what I'm getting here, right, will have an account as a root node, and that root node contains all this information like name and contact and kind of stuff. I'll show you when I talk about the integration procedure. So I hope that's clear. And the test parameter is just to test it, right? You add a test parameter and you say save and fetch. it will show you how it looks like on your screen. Okay. So now let's say you wanted to do some changes to this, right? Let's say you're not happy with it. Okay. Now, how do you do that? So you have two options here. You can either do a new version or you can clone it. So the new version is used when you are interested to make a change, and right, and you will activate it later. It's like flow, right? So if you changing a existing flow, you create something and then create a new version and then activate it. Clone is something which you know that you will be reusing that component elsewhere, right? And please never ever use a deactivate function, right? Because what happens is that if you deactivate, right, so your existing like account will stop working then, because then the component is deactivated. Let me show you this. I deactivated. I've seen people doing it, and it's just blah, it's not good practice. So, like I said, that these are all just tools, right? Now, how to make best use of the tools, that comes with practice and understanding of the entire process. Okay, so now I did that. Now I'll show you one thing, right? Where is it? Where is it? I don't know, somewhere. Okay, let's refresh it. Now you see the difference. You see, there is no active instance. Now, obviously, this is a very bad example, right? So you don't want the customer to see this. It was like, what? What is this, right? And what is a card main account, right? So it doesn't make any sense. So always make sure that do not deactivate it and create a new version, right? Just a word of caution. Now, you must be thinking, what the heck is happening when I'm trying to do this, right? So when you activate it, right, behind the scene, it compiles to an LWC component. That's exactly what it's doing behind the scene. Yeah. All right, let it compile, and let's go and look at the integration procedure, right? So we will let it do it. Let it take some time. We'll go to the integration procedure in the meantime. So I'm not doing any changes here. So I hope that flashcard is clear. But I'll go here, and I'll go to integration procedure. All right. So another thing, when you activate it, right, you have an option to publish to whichever targets you want, right? So you can say record page, home page, community page if you wanted to use it, right? So, and if when you save it, it will create the similar XML structure what you used to write the target. It's similar like LWC. There is no difference whatsoever. Okay, so I gonna use the existing integration procedure to demonstrate how I've done this. So it's taking ages. My apologies, it's not my fault. It's just the Salesforce sometimes is pretty freaking slow. I sometimes think I should have done this live, right? Then guys could have asked me the question. But normally, I've trained people in my company, but I've done it live. But then perhaps I'll do in the future something live, right? Maybe let's do the DevOps live, right? Then you guys can ask me questions or whatever. Okay. All right. All right. I think it's enabled. Let me double check it. And then we go back to whatever we're supposed to do, right? It's gonna take some time. Okay, so it's enabled, right? Now, I wanted to look at the integration procedure. Obviously, we are getting a data from here from integration procedure, so which means that we are getting a data from Salesforce as well as from an API. So I've used integration procedure. Now, you might want to change it in the future for whatever reason. Now, how do you know which integration procedure is getting used? It's pretty simple. So you go here, go to the setup, right? Click on the flex card, and then look at what data source is used. So it's a get case account. So you go here. So this is a get case account. So hopefully it's not okay. So this is the integration procedure I've used. Now you must be wondering, what the heck is this, right? I know. It's kind of a bit tricky, but Just bear with me. Let's create something similar, and then you will understand what I'm trying to do. Okay, so let's say your requirement to create integration procedure. So you go here, just make sure this is integration procedure. If you can't find it, just use the down arrow, and then do new. Okay, so you get something like this, right? The first thing. Okay, you look here, IP fetch data. This is the one. It's something like this, right? So this is the property window, right? So basically, you're saying, hey, I wanted to give the name of an integration procedure, right? So that I can use it elsewhere. So this is a property of integration procedure. So I will say name, so demo. Oh no. Also demo procedure. Please give a meaningful name, right? Just don't give a shite name like I'm giving. And type. What exactly are you trying to do? Type. I'm doing get. And what exactly are you trying to get? Account. Okay. So what I've done, right? So using this integration procedure, I'm trying to get from a Salesforce as well as from the API in this, right? So here I'm trying to get the case account info. Basically, I'm saying that, hey, give me the case and then give me the account related to that. Give me the account and the case related to that, sorry. Okay, so I've done that and I'll save it, right? To be conscious of time, right? Otherwise, you're gonna go hours and hours. So I'll try to make it quick. So please give a description so you just can get account case from Salesforce and data from API. Okay, so this is what you've done, and you can activate it, because if you don't activate it, you can't use it. All right. Now you see you have all these blocks at the left hand side. These are the groups like catch block, condition block, loop block, try catch. So catch block is like you drag and drop. It's like it's part of a catch. Condition block is like if else condition. If you have used Apex, if you do this, else you do this. If you do this, else you do this, right? Loop block, if you wanted to loop it, right? For instance, you wanted to loop through a record, so you can use the loop. And try catch is like something you execute the stuff in a try part, and if something goes wrong, it hits the catch block, right? It's similar like an Apex code, right? If you're coming from a Java background, it's pretty much the same. And then you have action. Action means what do you expect the integration procedures to do, right? Like for instance, getting a data from a Salesforce, then you use all of this adapters action. You wanted to delete a record, you use the delete. If you wanted to send out an email, you use the email. You wanted to do list action. You wanted to set the values. You wanted to do to get the data from an HTTP API, you can do that using HTTP API version, right? So you can do that pretty much using all of this, right? Pretty fantastic. So we are going to look at this, what I've done. So the first thing what I've done, I've drag and drop a data extract case. So what that means is that, so I want to get a data from a Salesforce object. So I've dragged and dropped this component here, which is great. Now I give the name here, so we just say Dataraptor extract. Now we have a problem here. The problem is it's expecting a Dataraptor. Now we haven't created a Dataraptor, so we have to go and create it. So how do you do that? You just go back to here. So instead of here, just go back to Dataraptors. I've already created one. So I'll show you the one which I've created, but I'll also show you how to create one. Okay, so I'll go to IP fetch data. So I go here. This is the existing one. So I've used something called get account cases here. Okay, so I'll go here. So get account cases is what I've used. So I will open this to show you what I've done. So this is what I've done. Okay, now let's create one just to give you an idea. So as usual, you have to be in Dataraptor and do new. So now, what is the requirement? Okay, so this is the name. Let's start with the name. Okay, interface type. All right, now as you remember, so if you remember from my slide, we have four kinds, right? Turbo, extract, load, and transform. So what exactly I'm trying to do here, I wanted to get an account and the first case associated with the account, the recently opened case. And I just wanted to know the recently open case. Don't care the status is open or closed, but the recently opened or closed case. That's all I'm after. So basically, I'm after the data from two objects, right? You're not after data from a single object. So if you remember, I spoke about if you're using a turbo extract, you only get the data from a single object. But if you're using an extract, you get the data from two objects or multiple objects. So we're going to use extract. Oh, come on. And then you see the input type, JSON, you can change it. Like I said, XML or custom, but we're not going to bother with it. Output JSON, okay? Let's save it. All right. Now, like I said, what I'm after an account object. Say, okay, give me an account, right? This is the output path, the name, which you're going to use in form of JSON. So you say account, and what's the filter? The filter is, I want ID equals account ID. I mean, you can put any name you want. You can put ACID, account ID, AID. Now, you must be wondering where we're going to use this one. So if you remember the flex card I talked about, right? Let's go back to the flex card, right? In the flex card, in the setup, you remember you asked me, right? What is this account ID, right? Where are we going to use it? So we're passing the record ID of an account to this account ID, and this account ID will in turn pass it to an integration procedure, which is this one, and which in turn pass that account ID to here. So you can see the connection, right? So let me write it down. So we have flex card account ID, and it goes to integration procedure, and from integration procedure it will go to the Dataraptor, right? So Dataraptor. So as you can see that this ID is getting passed to this and this to pass, and this in turn will return the data back to the integration procedure, right? And the integration procedure will in turn return the data back to the flex card, right? I hope that makes sense. Okay, so and then that's great. Now, obviously, we are not after one record, right? We are after multiple objects. So we wanted to get the case record for this account. So we do extra step. I'll say I want the case. And I'll extract part the cases. You see that the JSON is forming here, and I will say account ID equals to account. So now here, you must be thinking, why have you not used the dot? In Omnistudio, right, if we don't use the dot for any kind of formulas, if you wanted to access a node, right, we use the double colon, right? That's how it used. So we done this. Now we go to if you wanted to use the formulas, you can use the formula, right? So for instance, if you wanted to, transform something, or if you wanted to modify something, use the formula. Then we use the output, right? Obviously, you're saying that, okay, this is what I wanted from this object, but you're not actually specifying an output. So without specifying an output, you can't get it. So for instance, I would say, I want the account number, and so this is how you form a JSON, because it's up to you how you want to form a JSON. Because, like, for instance, I wanted to form a JSON where I want account to be the root node. Okay, so I will say account to the root node. I will say ACC number. Okay, so I'll form this, right? And then I will say I want account active. So everything come under account active. All right, I can say status, right? So I'm getting an information from account, and I'm putting all of it under account JSON. Now, I want the same thing with the case. I want the case to be part of the account instead of a separate node, right? So what I'll do, I'll do this. I will do this. I will say case. Let's put some case. Okay, case account ID. So I would say account. That's my root node, and then say it should go under case, and it should under ACCID. Now, if you remember, I mentioned I'm not talking up here putting dot to access the node. You have to put the colon double, all right? So that's exactly it is. So you see, now it goes under case. Now it goes under here. Now, whatever the right subject. I hope it's not too complicated. So we say case subject. All right, so you can getting this. So like I said, this is the output JSON you will get, and you can form the way you want based on how you wanted to use it in the flex card, right? One word of advice: don't overcomplicate your JSON, right? Just make it in such a way that you know that you will find it easy to access the nodes of the JSON. Okay, if you put it as a separate, complex one, then you might find it tricky to use it in FlexCard. I mean, some people are really experienced JSON developers; they can fiddle with any JSON they want. But if you're someone coming from a functional background, just a word of caution: try to keep it simple, right? That's all I'm saying. And then preview. How do you want the data to be previewed? Okay, you add the key, so you just say account ID and then add the value. So I'll show you the existing one, what I've done. It's pretty much the same what we use it here. So this is what I've used for my demo, and as you can see, that is pretty much the same, right, what we did. The only thing what I've done here, right, I'm saying, hey, give me the case with account ID, but order by and the limit one. Now you must be wondering, how do I get this option, right? So you go here, go back here. Now you have an option here, right? I will say, hey, I want the order by, create date, descending, and I want just one record, and I will say limit, just one. Exactly the same, right? Not much difference. It's pretty much the same. So what I'm doing, I built a Dataraptor, okay? And that Dataraptor is used to get the data from a Salesforce object in the form of a JSON. So what we're trying to do, we're getting an account and the reason case, okay, irrespective of the status. Now you go to preview here. So if I execute it, so you get this something like this, right? So this is how your JSON will be returned in an integration procedure, right? So we go back to the integration procedure here. So this is how your JSON will be returned to the next step, okay? Now, all right, so I got the JSON to the next step. So now one thing I just wanted to tell you guys right here, right? So what's the name of the JSON? Here we did get demo raptor, right? Now, if I go here and I try to put it here, we'll say you will get the value, but sometimes you will not find this interface. So for that, you have to refresh it because for whatever reason, Salesforce does not recognize it in other window. All right, now the input parameter. Remember when we talked about the flex card, we are passing this account ID to this account ID, right? And which in turn get passed to the integration procedure, okay? Now, obviously, your integration procedure is getting that account ID, but how do you pass that account ID to this person here, right? How do you do that? That's pretty simple. So you go here, so you have input parameter, add it, account ID, and also account ID. I just love to keep the same name same. Okay, so now what happens is, so you pass it and it will retrieve this JSON back to you, and then this procedure is getting it. Okay, now you have a JSON when you run it, which is great. Now I wanted to get now in this case I'm using set value to get the name. So now remember I told you that I'm gonna make use of this API, right? Where I have to pass a name to get the nationality of the person. In other words, this API tests, okay, Esther could be found in few countries like Luxembourg or I don't know what K is, man. I sometimes hard to understand the country ID, but in general, you get my point. So I do need to have a name. And what name am I after? I'm after this primary contact name. So I need somehow this young to be passed to this API. But for that, I need young to be separated from this account. Okay, so I need to get this value young from a primary contact. Now, how do you do that? Right, pretty good question. So you drag and drop a set value component, right? So we'll do the step. You drag and drop it here, right? Give a meaningful name. You just say set value. All right. Now you go back. So what are you doing? You are actually populating the value from that node, JSON node, to this separate variable called name. Okay. So set value is actually setting a value to a variable. It's like if you've used Apex, you know that you're setting just a value. So what I'll do, I will add new. Okay, I'll add new, and I will say, okay, I want. Wait a second. I want this primary contact to be stored in this name. Okay. Now this is a formula field in Omnistudio. Anything to do with the formula has to go under % sign. Okay. Now, where am I getting the data from? I'm getting the data from this step, data extract. This is what I'm returning in extract. Okay, right? So I can't use something like, okay, give me. I cannot use, say, account dot primary contact. Right? This will not work because you're just telling the integration procedure, okay, I got a JSON, right, which has an account node and give me the primary contact. But then integration procedure will say, hey, who is giving you this account node, right? From where are you getting this from? So for that, you have to say, okay, I'm getting from a Dataraptor extract. So you put the Dataraptor extract before. Now, this will gonna work. Simple, right? See, Dataraptor extract, and it's getting it, right? It's pretty simple. All right. Now I got a name, which is fantastic, right? I have a name now. Now I can use it in my API call. So this is getting me this this JSON, right? And I got the name from this API using this set value. Now I need to query an API. So for that, you drag and drop an HTTP action. Say HTTP, right? HTTP, whatever the name, right? HTTP code and HTTP path, right? So for that, you just go to this, right? And just pause this boy here. Okay, now forget about this for a second, right? Just copy paste the path from your API, right? And then what method is it? Obviously, it's a get, right? So if you know how the HTTP works, so it's a get, then put, then post, right? And patch, right? So this is like HTTP verb. So in this case, we're getting a data. Now, obviously, there's a problem here, right? I'm saying to get me the name Esther, but that means you're hard coding a value, right? I'm not after the hard code value. I want the real name that goes from this whatever I'm getting from Dataraptor, which goes in turn gets from the set value, and then which pass to the HTTP code. So how do I do that? So remove the Esther, as usual. Percentage, everything is to do with the formula here, right? Anything to do with the modification, everything goes through formula. All right, so now I wanted to get the name, right? Now, obviously, I can't get the value name because then integration procedure will say, who is giving me the name? Where I'm getting this name from? What is name? So you say, okay, there is something called set value, right? I'm getting a set value. okay? And I'm getting this name, all right? All right, now name credential is something you might have seen, right? I mean, I'm pretty sure you guys are Salesforce guys. If not, then, all right, anyway, I'm going to tell you guys, but I expect you guys to know name credential. Name credential is, let's say you have credentials, right? You wanted to access an auth API, right? So you can't pass the credential anywhere here, right? As you can see, you can do that using the name credentials. So you go to name credentials and right, and you create a new name credentials, and you put all the name, blah blah blah, and then just put the per user, per name principal, or whatever, and then you pass the auth, right, which you have to create a separate, right? So something like that, auth. Authentication provider. So it's a separate integration topic. So if you haven't watched it, I put a entire series on integration. Just go and check it out, guys. Right? I'm not going to cover integration here. I expect you guys to know. If you're a functional consultant, don't bother with it. I mean, just go along with the flow at this stage. All right. So I'm passing this name, and this will return me a separate API. Okay. So this will return me something like this. When this step get executed, this will get return me something like this, right? So now you see we have two things here, right? We got two JSON coming out. So let me run this, okay? You must be thinking what this guy is doing. Right, I'll explain to you. Don't worry. So I got these two APIs, right? Now I wanted to combine these APIs into a single API, right? Now, how do I do that? So for that, I will use something called Dataraptor transform. You remember I talked about if you wanted to modify XML or JSON, that you use the transform, right? So that's cool. Now, what is this, right? So if you go back here, right, the properties, right? So if you obviously you wanted to test it whether your integration procedure is working or not. So you go to preview. So you add the key. Now, what is the key? So that's the same key which comes from your flexcard, right? The same one. So you pass you can hard code it because this is just for testing. And when you execute it, you will get different, response based on each step, right? Each step. Now, let's say the Dataraptor extract case. So Dataraptor extract case goes under Dataraptor extract debug. So, or you can, this is the XML the Dataraptor extract returns, right? Sorry, the JSON. Now, if you wanted to see what's the value of the set value, you can see this is what the set value returns. So it's like a debug step to see what each step is returning so that you can understand whether you are actually getting a right value, right? And the same goes for the HTTP, okay? All right, now I have this transform. So obviously what I've done, so in this case, so I'll go here and I will just do the Dataraptor transform action. So I'll drop it here and I'll just give the name. And obviously when you do a Dataraptor transform, you need to have a Dataraptor transform in place, right? So obviously we don't have one, okay? In this case, I already built one, parse data, right? So I will open that one, existing one. You must be thinking this is too much for me. I know. I mean, I'm trying to make it simple, right? So what I'll do, I will create one for you guys just to make you understand. So go back here. So go to new. So I will say dummy p data, pass data, or whatever, right? Interface type, it's just a transform. What input you're getting? Obviously, we're dealing with JSON. Output type, obviously, you're dealing with JSON. You can have different types here. You have PDF, DocuSign, document template, custom, right? So for now, you must be thinking, why do I need XML? So the good question, that's a good question. So you might be dealing not only with the REST API, you might be dealing with SOAP, right? XML. So the SOAP often returns XML, right? So if that's the case, if you wanted to convert that, say for instance, you have Salesforce data returning in form of a JSON and you have a web service returning in form of an XML, but you want the output to be transferred to JSON. So you say, oh, input type is XML, and I want the output to be the JSON, right? So, and you can put the required permission if you want, and the description. Okay, so if you want, you can add formulas, right? So you're getting a JSON, so you will, tidy it up, and you will do the transform. Now, you can do manually, but which is a pain in the ass, to be honest, right? It's not really a great option to do that. So what you can do, right? In my personal opinion, so you have a JSON input, right? Remember, we got these two input, separate input. So you copy this and you just paste here, right? So what that will do, it will, okay, so it's kind of invalid JSON, which is fine. Which is all right in my case. So what do? It's okay. Don't worry about it. So what you can do, right? So you have to merge this JSON into one JSON. Now you must be wondering what this guy is talking about, right? So you go back to the IP fetch here. So you go here, transform. So if you go to now you go to preview. So if you run execute, and so if you copy this whole boy here, right? Um, you can get all the XML and then remove all the rubbish from here, whatever the rubbish, right? And you remove all the rubbish here and keep only just one, whatever that's coming, right? Remove all of this stuff, right? You just remove all of it and something like this, and then try to put that into a JSON validator to see if it's a valid JSON. If it's a valid JSON, then copy paste it and put it here, right? No, not here, sorry. And put it here. Once you put it here, it will give you, where the heck is it? It give you something like this, okay? So, all right, something like this. If we give you something like this, right? And if you give it something like this, what you can do, you can actually go back here. Oh man, just a second. I think I've opened too many windows, so I'll close this one. We don't need it, right? This one here. So I'll copy it here. So it says valid JSON, right? So if you don't want to pass this, you can also do quick match, but I'm not gonna. Okay, let's do quick match. So the quick match is just to, if you have an output mapping, how do you want it? So forget about it for now. Okay, so now here you have to see how you want your JSON to be formed. So what I'll do, I will say I want the account case ID. So I want this to go under account case account ID. Okay. Now you have an output data type. So right. So you have an output data type. You can specify which type it is. So so if you wanted to specify, say, date and time, you can do that. You can do the list. You can do a lot of things here, right? So for now, I let the Salesforce decide it. So this is handy if you wanted to do, if you want to specifically, explicitly mention a type, you can pretty much choose it here, right? And so you can do that. As you can see that you will forming a JSON here, right? So now I want to say Dataraptor account.case status. So it should go under the same, right? Right? See, it doesn't work. So if you do this, see, it is forming a wrong node. So the mistake you did, you just don't need this one, case, right? So this is how you do it, right? So, and now I do need some account information. So what I'll do, I'll just do account.name. So let's say account name, right? Okay, account.name. And then I will do primary contact. I can do something like this. Okay, I can do this, right? All right, so now also remember, these are the things I'm getting from the Salesforce object, but I do have something from API as well, right? So how do you do with that? So there must be HTTP name, action name, right? So you can do this something like that. So you can do not HTTP action name. So we are getting, what we are getting? We're getting something, whatever that thing is, right? HTTP action. So we're getting the country ID. So we can do, go back here. So we can do country ID. So we can do, right? So, oh, come on. So we can do account API country, right? Something like this you can get. So this way, you can see that account is the root node, then everything is a part of it. So this will make your JSON easy, right? So remember in the flex card, I passed just an account node here, right? So, all right, so that's how your transform works, right? So I have demonstrated here exactly the same, and then you can preview it. So you can copy paste your XML here, and then it will preview something like this. It's just for testing it, right? So this is how you use it. So once I have it, I'll go back here and I will, where is it? I will go back. I'll put the data transform and I will pass the give the name. Now you must be wondering, okay, so how do this transform, right? How do this transform knows where to get a JSON result, right? How do this one knows? Well, that's pretty simple. Um, for that, all I have to do, you go to IP fetch data, go to transform. You remember this, there's additional input. So I'm saying, okay, pass this Dataraptor and HTTP node to this. Okay, so Dataraptor extract case is just the name I've given. And I wanted to pass this one, so I put in the form of percentage, right? So, okay, now all this is good, right? Now I'm getting, obviously, this dummy, this one, this value, right? So this value I'm getting. So now, no, this one. So I'll close this one, right? So I'm obviously getting this. Now I need to pass this to FlexCard. Now how do I do that, right? So you cannot do that without response action, right? So I have this transform. Now I need to pass the response action. So without response action, you cannot return a data back to the flex card. So if you put a response action and if you say return full data, that is just rubbish data you're going to return, right? Because then what are you going to tell to the flex card is that, hey, I'm getting like, lots of garbage data. Take it and figure it out. That's very bad. So instead, whatever data you're getting from here, pass that one here. You just put it here, like something. Like I'm getting a data from transform here. So what I did, I just passed the transform. So what that will do, when you do this, if you preview it, you will get this data, right? And this is the data that will pass to the flex card. Okay, so I hope that's very clear. So we're getting this data here, right? And so if you go back to the flex card here, so I'm saying, okay, I'm return me the JSON with the root node as an account. So return me with the JSON with the root node as an account. So here the root node is account, rest everything is a part of it, right? So if you go here, I'm saying, okay, name, right? Obviously the name is coming from this one. Primary contact come from here, right? So you must be wondering why I haven't used the account colon name. That's because you've already specified my root as an account, so you don't have to specify it. Okay. Now there is something I have here, which is called a flyout, right? So now what is a flyout? Okay. I hope that's clear in terms of integration procedure, right? It's pretty important that, and one thing before I do that, just remember one thing, guys. Uh, you have to be careful how do you use it, right? I normally prefer, I mean, this is not really a very good way to do that. What I've done, you should always put this stuff under try catch block, right? And then move everything under try, then this, Dataraptor, and if something goes wrong, right, just put the error condition here, right? And remember, no, sorry. It will execute in the same order, right? When this run, it will run this, 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 right? It's all in a single server call, right? So that's powerful. So it's a good practice to put the try catch block to handle the error condition. Okay, so I hope that's clear. All right, now I have something called the fly here. Sorry, the fly out. So why do you need a fly out, right? So you remember when I talked about the flex card, I talked about embedding a child record to the parent flex card. So sometimes what happens is that you have this flex card here, right? And imagine you want to embed another flex card on top of it, another flex card of it. It looks very cluttery, right? So it's not a great user interface. The user interface is where the customer can get all the necessary information, but not in a cluttered way. So what you can do, you can put it in the form of an action, right? And you can specify the fly out. And I'll show you just a second. So this is a demo account. Right, so what you do, you just go to here, okay, just to action, just put the action field here. And what action type? You have different action type, card, data, event. I'll just put the flyout. And I will put the name of the flyout is the child card. What's the name of the flyout? You have to put the child card, right? So I can put the simple cases. So, and what's the data node? So this is exactly, it's very important. Okay. So now let me show you the flyout, the child node, what I built. Okay. It's nothing fancy. It's just pretty simple. So like I said, you want a user to see more information. In our case, what I'm telling to user, hey, this is the account information, but this is also, if you wanted to see the case associated with the account, have a look at this. Now, I can't put the case associated here on the screen just to see, right? I I don't want the user to see all the time. I just want the user to have that separate window, to show it off, so that it does not clutter my screen. So I'll go to the integration, the flex card here, and there's something called show whatever, right? Showcases. So it's pretty simple, right? If you do new, you put the name here, you put the title here. Everything is the same except that you have to tick this one. So when you tick it, it will become a child flex card, right? You cannot embed a non-child flex card on a flex card, right? It has to be a child one. So you have to make sure you tick it. And like I said, you have to tick it in the beginning. All right, so I'll open the showcase. And as you can see, I just put a normal, the text block. And in the text block, you will see the primary contact cases.subject. Now you must be wondering, hang on a second. Primary contact is fine, but what is this cases.subject? How is it coming from? And you will ask me, show me the setup, please. Okay, I'll show the setup. And you say, I have no data source. So how I'm getting this one, right? Good question, right? So you're getting this value from a parent. Okay, so you go to main account. So this is a child, right? Flex card. You have a fly out here. You have a child card. You see the data node records. So when you pass the records, you're basically telling to the flex card that I'm actually passing you this, um, which is this one? Sorry, the whichever that is. Wait a second. I'm basically passing you this entire node of entire value of the account, basically, right? So everything to do with this name and primary contact API, everything in the case you will be getting it. So what that will do is that, so it's pretty much like you're accessing uh, the stuff you're accessing here, right? The primary contact. So you are actually passing that to the case, the record. So which is the passing a record, right? It's as good as saying, right? You're passing this account node, if that makes sense. So you have to pass the records, right, to get the data. And so once you go here and showcase, so I'm getting, okay, primary contact, I'm getting it. Now, what is the case or subject, right? You must be wondering. So the here is not colon, right? It's confusing. It's dot. So that's how the flex card works. In integration procedure, you might have seen it's colon, but here it's not. Okay, so how to access it? It's pretty simple, guys. So it's just that account we have root node, then you pick the case node dot subject. So that's pretty much it, and here is pretty much it, right? So that's how you're accessing it. All right, now one thing I wanted to show you, this one. So integration, this is a value I'm getting from integration. So I dropped the text block, and all I'm doing is that give me API.country. Now, so here I'm getting another node called API. So I'm just passing API.country. So it will give you the list of countries. You see, now you can see that we are getting a value for integration procedure. So multiple source, but single JSON data. So it populates both the stuff. Now, update accounts. So what I did, I drag and drop a component. So I drag and drop a component, and I wanted to update an account information, right? Obviously, I talked about Omniscript. So when you wanted to do any user-based action, right, use Omniscript. So I dropped it. So I did it here. So what I'll do, it's gonna become slow, right? So you go to the Omniscript, and obviously you need to create an Omniscript here, right? So I don't have an Omniscript. So let's go back to this here, and I will do Omniscript. So in our case, I've already used an existing Omniscript, which is called an update account. This is how it looks like. Now you must be wondering, it doesn't make any sense to me. That's fine. So let's go back to this Omniscript here, and we create a new one. Name, you can say test. Just give a meaningful name. Just put the get whatever that account. So obviously, I'll show you the bad practice I've done, and it's just something which you have to keep into consideration, right? This is a very bad way to do it. I've seen people doing it. This one takes time to create it. I do not know why, but this is how it is. The one which I'm using it. Oh, come on. What the heck happened? Okay, so you get something like this, right? And you have all the stuff similar like Flex Car, right? You have the things to drag and drop. But the difference is that this is a step block. So step block is like, when you get a guided interaction, right? It's like individual pages. So you can have multiple step pages here, which means that first screen you will get all the stuff, second screen you get all the stuff, right? So let's say I wanted to add input action. So here is the things which get interesting. So you say, all right, so we'll say, okay, I'll add the checkbox. and I will say, hey, the name of the checkbox is tick me. So this is just like where you're expecting a user input, right, to do something. And then you say text area. This is where the user enter the information, right? So when the and then you can preview it how it looks like. So that's the beauty of it, right? So if you scroll up, there's something called the preview here. So you can preview it, and you can preview it. This is how it looks for the user. And the context ID is your account ID, whatever ID you wanted to pass from a FlexCard. So the difference is that in FlexCard we talked about the record ID, but here we talk about context ID. So that's the difference, right? So if you wanted to pass information from a FlexCard to here, you cannot use a record ID here. You have to use it as a context ID. I'll show you. And this is how I'll show you in a second, right? And this is your debug information on the side, right? And then you can see, if you wanted to see in desktop or tablet or mobile, how it looks like, right? So for instance, your customer might be accessing this information from the mobile, right? So this is how it should look like. And then you wanted to use the Lightning or new port, as I discussed, and then you put the context ID and refresh it. It will actually pretty much show you the test data. Okay, so let me go back to the main script, what I've done, right? So what I've done, so I'm actually getting a data from an integration procedure here, right? So this data will actually give me information about the account. And then I'm actually getting an ID and phone number and text, pre-populating it, and then giving an option to the user to say, hey, if you wanted to update it or not. And then I'm using this Dataraptor post to post the data back to the Salesforce, and then navigate action and to take it back to the screen. If you're thinking that I'm talking, Greek and Latin, so I'll just show you what I meant. So if I go to account, so go to Dixon Place, you click on update account. So this is what I'm talking about, right? It's pre-populating the stuff, right? Now, if you go here, so it is getting a value using this integration procedure. Now, this is not really great, in my opinion. The reason why it's not great, right? Because if you look at this main account, right? Here, I'm already getting a account data using existing integration procedure. Now, I could have got more data using the existing, and instead of calling the integration procedure again to get the data, I could have passed that JSON, that input parameter here, and using that input parameter, I could have populated it. So if you know what I mean. So that's the mistake I've done. So this is a common mistake I've seen. So if you already have a data node in place, like in our case we have here, using this guy, right? So all you have to do, probably, your Omniscript have some options. You got some option to enter the input parameters. You can pass the input parameter, and then you can populate this boy here. And once you populate that, you have to post it back to the Salesforce. Now, how do you do that, right? So that's the one final piece. We're gonna look at it. Then we're done. I think we talked a lot today, right? Okay, so you go to Dataraptors. So I'm going to look at the one which I've used. So I'll go here, click here, and it's called load data. So you go to load data. So this is something you get it. Now I'll show you how to do that. So you go to Dataraptor. So you go into new. So you say test. Okay, load data. Didn't mean to scream. Test load data. You just load batch size, how many records you want to do. So just put it one. Input type JSON, output type S objects. Obviously, we are pushing the data to Salesforce, right? Require permission you can do. The description is always good to put. Okay, so in this case, it's very different, right? So you're actually telling which object I wanted to put the data in, right? So I say, okay, put the data into account. You can do multiple too, so that's why you have, add object here. So you can account data. All right, now, all right, that's great. Now I wanted to put the data back into this to object, right? Now, how do I do that? So for that, you have to go something called field. So here you say this is the input JSON part, this is an output JSON part, right? So you can say, all right, I'm getting a data from Omniscript. So Omniscript usually, the thing is now, in this case, right, you don't pass, if you look at it, you don't pass any input to this. So this kind of assume that based on the current context, right, whatever the JSON that is generated by this thing. So if you don't, let me go to preview, right? Let me, just a second. Let me go to this Dixon account. All right, script, right? I do this here, and I'll refresh it. So you can see that, right? This is the JSON is forming update account ID, right? So you need to grab this one, right, from here and use it here. Where is it? Here. Okay. So okay, I'll close this one. Like I have a load data, right? So you go to field here. So you see update account.id, right? So where you think, so this is one update account ID. So this is the JSON we are after. So here, if I go here, so I'll just say update account. No, not this one. So update account. Okay, all Dataraptors, right? Integration procedure. You should not use dot, right? Except in flashcard, right? So use colon ID. Obviously now, where does the ID goes to? Obviously it goes to ID, right? But there's a but here, right? You're not putting the ID back to the Salesforce ID field, right? When it's already there. So you click this one called upsert as required. So what that will do is that if for whatever reason Salesforce fails to find an ID, it will create a new one. It's like an upsert, right? So for upsert, you need a key. So that's the one. And then you say another one, update account. What's this name? You just have to specify the cases properly here. So I would say SIC, SIC, and we'll go to SIC, right? So similarly, you add other fields, right? And then just preview it. That's pretty much it. You don't have to do much, right? There are a lot of things you can do, rollback and override trigger, and a lot of things you can do. But for now, this is the basic stuff what we're gonna do. Okay, so once you do that, just go to in this case, the one thing you might have wondered, right? For Omniscript, right, we have an option to activate and deactivate. But you might have seen for Dataraptors, we don't have any of the options, right? So that's because that's how it is designed. You don't need to activate it. You just auto save it. So, but for integration procedure, you have to activate it. For FlexCard, you have to activate it. For Dataraptors, you have to for Omniscript, you have to activate it. If you don't activate it, then you will not be able to use it. Okay. Now I put this Dataraptor here, and then after that I use the navigate. The reason why I need to do the navigate, right? So if you don't put it, right, once you update it, it will not go back to your record page, because that will be a very bad user experience. Imagine you go to update it, and instead of coming back here, it will stay in, showing to user something like this, which is a pretty bad interface. All right, now there are other options you can choose. You know, there is something called button properties. You can set it, and um, there are a lot of things you can play around with it, right? So in simple terms, right, Omniscript, uh, you can make your Omniscript in such a way that you can reuse it. So you can name the field and variable name in such a way. You can reuse that one. Um, so the one thing you have to understand, right here, if you look at the phone number, right, and all of the stuff, I'm not populating any of the stuff from here anywhere, right? So you just have to make sure that whatever the JSON node, right, you get, right, then the node name should exactly matches the name of the node you want to populate. So for instance, I'm getting account node here, which contains phone number, ID, SIC code, right? So to match exactly the same, right, you have to put the field name, right? Label doesn't matter. Like for instance, I have the SIC code. So exactly the SIC code I'm getting from this integration procedure node. And exactly the same case, the same and no difference. So if you have something called, let's say your integration procedure is returning SIC code, and you put here as SIC, it will not populate it because then your Omniscript will say, hey, I'm getting something called SIC from this guy, but my name says SIC code, so it must be different. So it will ignore it, right? Say, I'll just put it there. I think it's kind of, okay. Let's say here, right? So this is the node, let's say you're getting, right, as a part of this integration procedure. Now you put this guy as a phone, right? So let's go here and let's say you have phone here, okay? So phone exactly matches with the um, phone here. Now, for whatever reason, if you put instead of phone 123, right? Then when you run this step, right, it will not populate the value of the phone from this JSON because the the Omniscript will look at the JSON and say, I have a phone here, but then my this thingy does not match the name, so it will ignore it. So you have to pay special attention to it. I know it's too much to grasp in a video, but I just wanted to make sure I cover it. If you don't understand, go and watch it again and again, right? So, because I wanted to do this video so that, tomorrow you have a project, just watch my video and you say, okay, it does make sense. It does make sense. Aha, that makes sense. Oh, okay, that makes sense. So, you know what I mean? So, like I said, few good practices I'm going to tell you right now. Just a second. So this is how the Omniscript works. You can, if you wanted to create a new, like for instance, we get this new page, right? If you click on next, if you want a new screen to open, right, a new interface to look like, you have to add another step component, right? We have something called step. The step, just drag and drop it, right? And it will create a new page. You can also do conditional view, right? So you can go here and you can put the conditional view. So say if you have a tick box, if that is ticked, then you show it. Otherwise, you don't show it. Something like that, right? You can do a lot of things here, right? Or let's say you have a few tick boxes at the back. If that is ticked, you can show that screen or this screen. There are a lot of options you can do, right? Just go through the trailhead and then see what you can do, right? So this is just an introduction video, right? Just to give you an idea, the power of Omnistudio, the things you can do, right? And just a few examples are demonstrated, and to see how easy to do things, right? So that's pretty much all I wanted to cover in terms of the components. But a few best practices I wanted to tell you. Like first thing, right? If you're getting a data from multiple source, do not use Dataraptors. Like I did a mistake here, right? I used the Dataraptor post. I could have used in the same integration procedure, and then I used conditional views to toggle it. So that's one thing. Do not deactivate it. Uh, instead create a new version and work on it, right? Give your naming convention a proper value, right? So that's another thing. And if you're not comfortable with with the UI, right? Perhaps get someone who is good with that, right? And also, you have to sit with your customer to see how they want the user interface to look like, right? It's all about user interaction. So, so that's pretty much I wanted to cover. I hope you guys enjoyed it, right? So, as you can see, we talked about a few things, right? We talked about Dataraptors, we talked about FlexCard, we talked about integration procedure, we talked about a lot of things, right? So that being said, I hope you guys have an amazing Sunday. Adios.